going to move into quick introductions. So my name is Minji Chang. I'm the Executive Director of Kollaboration. And Kollaboration, we are the hosting presenters of this panel. Yeah! Thank you. So just a quick intro for Kollaboration. We're a nonprofit organization and a grassroots movement that's North America-wide, and we showcase, connect, discover Asian American Pacific Islander artists. So we've been around for 18 years. We started back in 2000 in Los Angeles, pre-Facebook, pre-Instagram, pre-YouTube, pre-all of that. It was just one show with 200 people at USC on someone's credit card, and Paul PK Kim just made it happen. PK, we love him. And he decided to change the world with one show. Of course, he didn't know he was doing that. And since that show is spread across North America, we've had over 110 showcases with over 1,000 Asian American artists performing on those stages over the course of those 18 years. So we're extremely proud. A lot of those artists have moved on to become professional artists. You guys might know Far East Movement, Randall Park, Stephen Yoon. He used to play the guitar, or still does, I think, but now he's an actor. And then Kaba Modern, Quest Crew, Keena Granis, AJ Raphael, a lot of the YouTubers, a lot of these artists have come through. And so we just want to continue to be a platform for Asian American artists to be empowered through entertainment, to look at the creative arts as a great profession, as an opportunity to express their stories, to tell, figure out who they are, build their confidence, and share that with the world, and change our representation in the course of that. So we have our showcases. We have currently 14 city chapters where we have open mic nights, local events, and we have our podcast. Shout out to Marvin, who's my podcast producer and co-host. He's back there making sure everything goes well today. And some videos, interviews, etc. So hopefully you guys will follow us and get more information. And we're so proud to be hosting this and a music showcase as well. So yay, thank you for all your hard work. Thank you.
Minji's the mastermind behind like everything in this room.
Just show me. No. Well, I'm about to talk about our panelists, okay? So first of all, we have this handsome gentleman to my left, Phil Yu, who's better known to most of the world as Angry Asian Man. He's a Korean-American blogger who has been gracing our screens originally from the Bay Area, now in Los Angeles. Which he created in 2001. So Angry Asian Man has been writing about the facets of Asian American community that interested him, and 13 years, he's 15 now, right? 16? Yeah, we're 16 years later. Phil has arguably become one of the most popular Asian American bloggers on the web with goals to inform, entertain, and activate. He's won numerous awards in new media, and he writes daily about news, pop culture, and the media, which we all know could be extremely exhausting, and we thank him from the bottom of our hearts. He now has a podcast and a YouTube talk show that focuses on news and culture from the Asian American community. So everybody please give a round of applause for Phil Yu.
This looks so nice.
And everyone gets confused. They're like, he's so nice. Jenny Yang. Jenny Yang is a Los Angeles-based writer and stand-up comedian who produces the first ever, mostly female, Asian American stand-up comedy tour, Disoriented Comedy, and the Comedy Festival, a comedy festival. She is also the creator of the recent hashtag Thank You Matt Damon, which I know there are people in this room who participated in that. That hashtag that went viral on Twitter right after the premiere of The Great Wall, our favorite Asian movie. A frequent collaborator on viral videos of BuzzFeed and Fusion, she showcases thoughtful comedy to millions of folks. And in 2016, Jenny was honored as a White House Champion of Change for Asian American Pacific Islander art and storytelling. P.S. I was standing next to her when we shook President Obama's hand. So everybody give it up for Jenny Yang. Do you know how I'm going to start introducing you? Everybody, Ruby! Dante Basco is a Hollywood actor who has become a cult classic and pioneering figure in Asian American cinema. He was first introduced to us in Steven Spielberg's fairy tale movie Hook as Rufio. He quickly jumped to leading roles in New Lines Take the Lead opposite Antonio Banderas, and The Debut, which became the voice of the Filipino-American generation. And he's a very versatile man. He's Jake Long in Disney's animated series American Dragon, Jake Long as well as Prince Zuko in Nickelodeon's hit Avatar: The Last Airbender, and Dante is also the founder of one of the largest weekly poetry venues in the country, The Poetry Lounge, in Los Angeles. and shared his spoken word poetry on Russell Simmons' HBO Deaf Poetry Jam. He is also one of the founders of an Asian American arts collective in Los Angeles called We Own the Eighth, which I'm very proud to sit on the board with. Everybody, please give it up for Dante Basco. Real quick, this is really awkward talking about myself. So as I mentioned, I'm the executive director of Kollaboration. I'm also a Bay Area native, along with Phil, and a UC Berkeley alum. I was pursuing medicine when I decided to go into entertainment. And she's laughing, because like, why would you do that? And I'm also an actor pursuing that in Los Angeles, and therefore have come across these beautiful folks in working with Kollaboration. I've been with Kollaboration for 8 years, 4 as a volunteer, and in my 4th as the only full-time employee of our nonprofit, running the whole shebang with hundreds of really incredible volunteers all across North America who helped make this happen. And then Marvin, who's my associate director, really helped make this happen. So all of us are extremely humbled to be here in this crazy mainstream of a festival that we've attended and now get to lead this conversation. So thank you again for being with us. So we're going to dive right into this because we have a lot to break down in terms of the stereotypes, and don't want this to turn into a complaint festival, but we do need to kind of dig deep. That's why he came. But we're going to start with Phil, okay? So Phil, you've been in this space as an observer and a commentator for more than 15 years, and you've been documenting the issues affecting Asians and Asian Americans, things from immigration to church fights to all the whitewashing, the recent yellow facing, fun times. How would you describe the Asian American experience to someone who's new to the scene?
I like how church fights was in there.
That's how honestly, I read that when I was in college, and I connected so much to it.
My fellow Koreans grew up in the Korean church. You know what I'm talking about? Church fights. Wow, how do I sum up the Asian American experience? I think well, that's the thing. It's like there is no one Asian American experience. That the Asian American and Pacific Islander banner is such a unwieldly inconvenient label to describe one group, right? So it's really hard to be essentialized, and yet so many times in media and entertainment, it's either super essentialized into when it boils down to really simplistic stereotypes, right? We all know, we've seen that, or just plain invisibility, right? And so there's a fight happening where it's a conflict to wanting to define ourselves, right? But there's always a lot of forces that are always sort of trying to tell us who we are, what we're all about, and then I think this panel was born out of that tension and that conflict, saying I'm tired of people telling me who I'm supposed to be or what I am. And sort of mainstream media sources and other people, and wanting to sort of be the captain of my own ship is the word, and sort of define that story, so the thing is, when you're trying to essentialize the Asian American experience, it's there is no one experience, and that's the problem. That's a problem. And then so being so underrepresented, we find ourselves kind of, if not rendered completely invisible, really fighting for just scraps of just show me a little bit of myself somewhere out there in me. That's how I grew up. I grew up. That's I'm a huge media pop culture consumer, and I grew up like that. But I grew up just sort of dying to see myself. I remember specifically an episode of Different Strokes. Some people are not old enough to remember Different Strokes, but there's an episode of Different Strokes where there's a Korean there's a Korean plot that happens in that one, and I remember when that happened, there's a Korean guy shows up, and it's I'm Korean, and I was like, holy shit! And then I ran out. I had to be 6, 7 years old. I ran around the house trying to find somebody. There's a Korean on TV, and my grandma was not impressed at all. It's just a lifetime of searching for glimpses of something resembling my own experience. And right now, I feel like we've come to a place where I feel like for a long time we weren't even allowed to talk about this or complain or for fear of being painted as people who are just you know, like, who are you? Like, what do you, like, you should be just happy to be included in the party, you know, if that. And I feel like now there's a growing space to, for myself, as someone who's running a site called Angry Asian Man for like 16 years, like, for the longest time I feel like I was often very dismissed as sort of being sort of an outlier voice that was kind of extremist, I think. Not the case, but I feel that sometimes I felt like that, and now I feel like there is a larger conversation where it's like, wow, shit, you've been talking about is kind of real. Like, I kind of get it now, you know. So that feels nice, you know.
I'm glad.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and Phil, you touched upon that, saying that the glimpses of ourselves, and that there were glimpses, but they can be very damaging glimpses because they all kind of fall into these very narrow stereotypes, right? And kind of, I think that's, maybe I wasn't clear with the framing the question, but like, and all three of you guys can jump in on this about what are those common stereotypes. Maybe there are people in this room that don't know what those glimpses have been, if at all included in media. What are our stereotypes, Jenny?
Y'all know what the stereotypes are. You can just shout it out. What are our stereotypes? Smart, geek, long duck dumb. What else? Quiet. What else are here? Meek, submissive. Martial artist. Suck at what? Suck at driving. Okay. See, I got that because I grew up in Southern California and everyone was all straight Tokyo drifting, so I don't understand. Like, how you
It's a different world out there.
bad drivers. Yeah, so I mean, I feel like that's pretty, like, everyone here knows, right?
Y'all know now.
I always say Google model minority myth.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we've matured to, right? And so Phil, can you say, you know, what the changes in that representation, since you've been really calling it out for what it is, right? And in a way that maybe other people were not understanding, they weren't connecting those dots and suddenly are now. What do you see have been like major changes recently?
Well, I think definitely overwhelming. I mean, these stereotypes are like overwhelmingly is just like invisibility, just not being there at all, you know. And so one tangible metric I think for sort of describing the changes. I started the blog in 2001, and when I started that, there were 5 people of Asian American or Pacific descent on primetime network scripted television. 5. I counted. I went through the schedule. The network, it was a lot smaller back then. I went through the schedule of every show, and I looked through every cast, and I was like, and I counted, and there were just 5. You know, you could count on one hand. And so now it's actually like if you just look by quantity, there's so many I can't keep track actually, but not so much that you couldn't put a giant list together of all the Asians on TV, which I've done before. You know, nobody's making a list of all the white people on TV because you could, you know, what is the reason for that, you know? But you can still put, you know, you could put together a census of all the Asians who are on TV right now. And it's significantly larger. And then not just quantity, but like you could point to like really great Asian American characters who are like, I would have died to see that when I was growing up. You know, somebody like Glenn on The Walking Dead, or you know, just there's tons. I mean, like fresh off the boat. You know, but the problem with those is that there being so few. There's still being so few. They're held up as that one that you know, if somebody for God gets killed off on a show, man, you've lost like, you know, a large percentage of the really great Asian American characters.
And then the Pacific Islanders and Filipinos are like, how about us?
Yeah.
And then Cambodians are like, but
we have to start somewhere.
I know.
Right. And Jenny
always Chinese.
Coined the rep sweats.
with Phil and Joanna's help.
Well, with that, Jenny,
hashtag rep sweats.
To address your work. So Jenny, you've chosen to address and shape the Asian American narrative through stand-up comedy and viral videos and social media after a career in politics, for other people who don't know. And so I'm just curious about you sharing that, how you see those two worlds influencing each other and how that's been for you transitioning as well.
Oh my gosh. I first and foremost, I'm a person who cares about the world, and so that's just going to be a part of whatever I do. And now I just happen to be a stand-up comedian, and so naturally, I'm also going to talk about the world, not just sort of me being on Tinder or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So, which is what.
That's good though.
That's really good. Yeah. Okay, so But I think what I learned coming from those two worlds, like it's not only politics, I worked for a labor union, I worked for the labor movement, and I also was a part of nonprofits, right? So all the grassroots nonprofit world, I love y'all. Like I love you so much, you know what I mean? I love you, but shit was boring. Okay, for us to advocate our causes, you know what I mean? I feel like there was definitely a lack of creativity, and I felt very hamstrung as someone who worked in that world in order to really communicate and connect with people about why whatever cause you're a part of matters, right? So for me to move from politics to stand-up was so liberating, you know? Before, I used to do kind of like lobbying, like I had to make sure that everything I said, I was held responsible for because we had 85,000 workers and their contracts and their livelihoods on the line, right? So now I'm a free agent. I could be on stage, and I could tell you about my recent breakup, or I could tell you how, you know, I wanted Hillary to win because I was ready for a matriarchy, because don't get me wrong, I don't want equality, I'm a feminist, but I want to oppress men. You know what I mean? Like I can say shit like that. Like I can say shit like that, and no one's gonna be like, oh no, we're not gonna fund your grant. You know what I mean?
And therefore, destroying your organization.
Yeah, and destroying the entire organization and the 501c3 status. So my point is this: is like I think on the political nonprofit movement side, we need to be better at connecting and telling stories. And then on the comedy entertainment side, there's such a raging argument around what's free speech, what's censorship. You know, places are too politically correct. Number one, if Jerry Seinfeld is not going to want to go to college campuses, y'all can hire me. Okay, don't worry about it. I'll take those contracts for stand-up comedy. But I'm just saying, so to me, that's fascinating that all of this is happening, and especially in such a polarized political environment right now, I feel like this is exactly where I need to be. So, I don't know, I mean, I feel like that's just my hot take on sort of traversing the two worlds, you know, and the difference. Politics is too boring sometimes. It needs to be more entertaining, but in order to connect.
And you've done really well
these days a little bit.
I know.
But I think you do that, and I think, you know, with the viral nature of a lot of the content that you just did, and I was like there when she got this brilliant idea, like, I'm gonna make a video about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in response to the pho controversy.
So listen, if Asian Americans, if we showed up to the voting booth the way we show up to argue about people disrespecting our Asian food, you understand what fire we have when someone like Bon Appetit magazine puts out a video of a white chef in Philadelphia talking about how to eat pho. Oh my God! And you know, and also, so I did a video in response to that called, you know, how to eat peanut butter jelly, how to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I was Sammy Chu. I had a restaurant called Sandwich in Los Angeles, and I was teaching you how to make peanut butter jelly. Y'all, okay, I got so many private messages from Vietnamese folks who were like, thank you so much. Oh my God. You know, just fire emoji, clap back, clap back, clap back. But you understand, like, I know, Asians, if we just took our yuppie, foodie culture energy and just channel that shit to actual town hall meetings and politics, like, you don't understand, we'd be powerful. Okay, so I'm trying to figure that out. I'm trying to, like,
That's a good point.
just an algorithm.
Really good point.
We need South by Southwest Interactive to create that algorithm. By the way, I'm a little disappointed there aren't more South by Southwest Interactive people here. How many of you are interactive people? Oh shit, my bad.
Yeah.
Oh my God. No, we need.
They're all here.
Can I just put that? We need all the Asian tech people to come together with all the creatives and the political people.
Yes.
Can we make some shit? Can we crack this nut? Like, we need this algorithm so that we could quickly, with an app, translate food porn into political action. Can we do this? Oh my God. We'll get John Cho on it, you know what I'm saying? Like, it'll be lit. Like, it'll be lit.
Nice shot of getting John Cho.
John Cho.
He's here, you know.
He's here, I know. So I'm just saying, like,
He's not here in this room.
Oh, not in this room.
No. He's in my pocket. No.
Call him. Where's he at?
He couldn't make it right now.
Just saying. Oh my God, I'm so glad. Tech people, y'all code.
Different languages.
No, y'all code. No, y'all code. But I love it though. That's the thing. I don't think that's the thing. If you reinforce, like, can we just do it back to stereotypes? If we reinforce the stereotypes, I think we need to not have shame about it too. I think we need to have that right to be like, yo, I was really good at calculus. Just FYI. Anyway, that's my.
Well, actually, Jenny, you answered my follow-up question, which was just about like the tie between social media and how you leverage that, and how entertainment has become this really amazing catalyst, especially within the Asian American community, especially with YouTube and you know, just kind of taking over Twitter and things like that, to actually be a voice and giving light to all these different things.
Yeah, I mean, there's no excuse. Like, whenever someone's like, oh my God, I love what you do. Like, honestly, when I talk about representation and how we have a panel like this, how it's like the one panel in a sea of whiteness, like I would love it if someday we kind of worked ourselves out of a job in a way. Yeah. This job. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, wouldn't it be good? I would love to be just talking about like just navel gaze and just telling about my existential crises. You know what I mean? But like, no, but we end up doing this gig, which I actually get paid for, which is great, but like, I'd rather work myself out of this job and talk about Asian American voice stuff. Because this is what happens. People will DM me and be like, you know, I really appreciate you. I thank you for, you know, saying the thing I wanted to say that I never feel like I could say. I would love it if that could change so that I never get those messages anymore. So the people who also have the impulse to say something in response to something that they know is fucked up will just speak up. You know what I mean? And feel like they could take all of the platforms and technology that we have available right now and just use it. Because literally there's like almost zero startup money right now to just use your iPhone or your Samsung or your, not your Note 7. But that's so scary. Anyway, I'm just saying like that we have no excuse. Like literally, I don't want to, it sounds cruel, but I kind of don't want to get any more messages from other Asian Americans saying, I'm so glad you said the thing I wish I said. Because I want you to fucking say it. It kind of makes me mad, you know what I mean?
Well, it's changing. I mean,
it is.
With the new generation, I'm working a lot with the new generation, they don't have the same hangups as our generation did. Neither did we of the ones before us. And with the YouTube star, you saw, we've seen them impact the system in a way that we weren't able to do working through the studio system. So it'll ultimately happen, and we need to help kind of make that happen. It's happening. It's happening.
And that segues perfectly into my question for Dante, because Dante, you've been in the entertainment scene for several decades at this point. Not to like, I love you because you look like you're 12. But you've been really like a pioneer for the Asian faces and roles in Hollywood, and then you've also taken on sometimes a responsibility that people don't want, which is to be an advocate and to be a voice for other Asian Americans before this even became like a mainstream conversation, right? So I want to applaud you for that. And I was wondering if you could share some anecdotes about how you've seen that issue of diversity evolve over the years, because you started as when you're like a little baby and dancing with your brothers.
Yeah, so I've been in the entertainment industry now for over 30 years, and going into Los Angeles and Hollywood. I'm Filipino, right? So coming to LA in the 80s, 85, no one even knew what a Filipino was. No clue. You know, you're like, what are you? I'm like, I'm Filipino. And they're like, what is that? And I'm like, what's this role? And they're like, it's Chinese. I'm like, my grandmother on my dad's side, part Chinese. And they're like, this role is Mexican. I'm like, we're also Latino. But I mean, that's kind of.
Hey, tell them what your first role was, because that's awesome.
Oh, my first role was Native American. I rolled up. This is the thing about Asians in Hollywood. There's no roles, right? So one of the biggest things when I talk at colleges or I talk at art schools or whatever, and to make it in Hollywood, whether you're black, white, or whatever, you're actually beating. You're 1,000,000 to 1 odds coming to Hollywood. That's period. So being Asian is just another hurdle, right? But there's no roles. I played Native American twice, like crazy. I think I played Korean. I played every Asian, Korean, Cambodian, Chinese, Japanese.
I always had a question for you. When you were on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, did you have a specified?
No. What ultimately happens is you kind of create something where you can transcend, hopefully, you know, your race, whether you're anything. The ultimate thing they want to see in Hollywood is you. And one of the greatest compliments is like, we see you before your race, and so we start creating characters for you. One of the amazing things that happened, I didn't go into it going, I want to be this thing for Asian Americans, or I want to change the stereotype. But then as you grow up, you meet guys and they're like, yo, you're the first cool Asian I ever saw in film and television, ever, right? Young Asian guy, like, that's crazy. Or you know, now, 30 years into the game, I meet a lot of couples, right? So interracial couple come to me, and a guy would be like, so my wife had the biggest crush on you growing up, and I know for sure you're one of the reasons why she married me. And I'm like, you're welcome. You're welcome, dude. But I mean, little things like that, it sounds funny, but this is part of representation. This is part of who we are. It's a part, the thing about what we're doing now with all of us individually, collectively, our different orgs that we're doing, is we're taking back a narrative that's our narrative as Asians in America. What you don't realize is that stereotypes we all said before, we didn't write those narratives. Those are all narratives put out there by a quote-unquote, Caucasian media or predominantly white people writing about us in movies or how they experienced us, and that is their experience of us. What we have to do now is create our own product, our own films, our own stories in mass amounts, not in one movie every 15 years.
They're going to put Scarlett Johansson.
I know. Can I add an addendum to that? I think it's something that we don't, I feel like a lot of us are students of Asian American studies and ethnic studies, and I would be remiss to not add to that. Like this idea around, it's the white people that, created the stereotypes. In a way, yes, in a way, no. In a way, yes, because it was actual specific government policies that created the shape of immigration from Asia so that there was the kind of people that are here. Does that make sense? Right. So like, there's a lot of, after 65, immigration policy was they allowed a lot of professionals on visas to come over. Okay, so that's why, yes, my parents want to be like, yeah, you're smart, I like that stereotype. You know what I'm saying? A little bit. Totally. But like, there's a reason for that though. Does that make sense?
So all the gangsters got left.
And then there's refugees, there's other folks. No, you know what I mean? A little bit. There's a lot of folks who came because of higher education. And so you see this sort of spread in socioeconomic factors of our community.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And the diversity. And so I think we forget that there's actually, it's like looking at, some like reality television, like looking at The Bachelor and being like, at another country and being like, that's what America is. You know what I mean? Like we took a piece of Asia and plopped it in America because people think all of Asia is like just this.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So anyway, but there is a level of systemic racism involved in sort of like saying, look, these are good Asians, let's let the good Asians come over. Right, you know what I'm saying? And then it's like, oh, look at these good Asians. Why don't you be like these good Asians? Why don't you be like these good minorities? Black people, brown people. Like, that's literally what happened in the 60s. So I just want to throw that out there as like,
that's true.
Just a backing to,
And I think a lot of stereotypes, they're stereotypes because there's truth in the stereotypes.
So, yes.
But at the same time, when you talk about characters that have been portrayed, Asian characters have been portrayed in Hollywood media over the last 30 years, I'd say almost 98% of them were written by white writers, you know what I'm saying? And their experience of us, and that's a problem because we need to be telling our story. It's actually on us to, it means the most to us. It's gonna mean the most to us ultimately, and it means the most to us now. So part of what we're doing now is trying to get the initiative to have us create more product. The way to win in the game is to create more product. We don't know which product's gonna win, but I know that we have to write it. I mean, just sitting here, if you guys are watching like 4 different Asian people on stage, there's been no character like any of us in film and television, regular Americans talking like this with real issues and humor and irony. No one writes that.
Is this the sitcom we need to make?
Yeah, exactly.
Is this it?
But you know what I'm saying? It could be. But I mean, every time I do a panel like this, I look at my fellow panelists going, it's so crazy because no one writes any characters like any of these people that I'm talking to on stage right now, and that's a problem.
Hold up, an actor friend just pulled me aside the other day and he's like, yo man, I'm in this web series. I'm not gonna name what, I actually forgot the name of the web series that's coming out, but he's like, the character they wrote, he's kind of based on you. He's a blogger named Irate Asian Man.
That's copyright infringement.
He's cool, he's cool, and I was like, alright, whatever.
So things are changed it more, like irate Asiatic hombre or something.
That's copyright infringement, maybe.
But and Dante, just to like talk about what you're saying in terms of like the stories being written and everything, actually with Kollaboration, all of our respective organizations and Phil's blog, I mean everybody who has an Asian American issue with anything like hits up Phil, like can you post about this, can you write about it, can you interview? I mean, I want to hear all the stories. But it's also like with Kollaboration, people are coming to us saying, hey, I do want to write about diversity, I want to integrate an Asian character, but I'm so scared to misrepresent them. I don't want to piss y'all off. I got this email, one of these emails came last week because they heard about this panel, and a friend of them was like, you should talk to the panelists about that. So
that's good though.
That's so great.
Because they're scared, and we want them scared.
But that's the interesting thing that's happened because of social media, is that voice has emerged, and that if there's anger and there's a response, and thank you, Matt Damon, it's going to come out. It's going to come out in full force. You know what I mean? So I feel like there's this momentum that's happening. Yeah. Thanks to a lot of your guys' work, and Dante, and like all of you actually, I would really love to hear, before you turn it over to Q&A, what you guys would like folks in this room to either think about or to do. Because I feel like this is what it comes down to. We have all this discussion and we're like, we only have an hour.
Well, it's about creating, you know. It's good for people to be scared to a certain degree, but not too scared not to do anything. That's the worst.
Well, just to clarify, I like the non-Asians to be scared of us.
Oh, definitely. Non-Asians to be scared, but I want the Asians to be scared that we're not being represented enough to create something. So it's all about creating. Again, it comes down to product. Do what you do. Shoot YouTube videos, write films, write plays. We need more content than less, right? One of the biggest things is, I meet young actors all the time. They go, I want to be the first Asian Will Smith. I go, you should want to be the first Asian Will Smith. Right? I'll tell you this, Will Smith was a star at 17, a star, right? He's a rap star, traveling the country. He then gets the first Grammy as a rapper, right? And then he goes on his own TV show for 8 years, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, star of it. Then he ultimately goes to Independence Day and he's star of it. He becomes a bona fide Hollywood star, like one of the first black, box office crazy stars. He goes, that's great, that's what I want to do. But you also got to know that African Americans have been making product in America for over 100 years.
Yes.
Over 100 years, from the juke joints to the blues to jazz. By the time Will Smith became a star in the 90s, hip-hop had replaced rock and roll's pop music. The Harlem Renaissance and films had already happened. You're talking about a culture that put out so much product that you're gonna win. Us as Asians are behind the 8 ball in that way, but we are scaling fast. And we have to inspire all of us to create more product because we have to create the soil for this to happen. And that's where we are today, is about going, yeah, don't be scared to misrepresent a culture. Be scared no one's representing it at all. We should have tons of mistakes. We should have everyone should be talking and showing their point of view of what we're doing, whether it's political, whether it's just a regular love story, whatever it is, we should have more, not less.
I think we talked about this separately, just between the two of us. Like when we asked each other, we're like, okay, because that's a great point about African American culture and how it's so critical to American culture. Ask this of yourself. If you were to boil down an Asian American aesthetic or cultural vernacular, do we have that? No, right? Think about it. Some of it is also hip hop, some of it is also rock, some of it was, you know what I'm saying? Like it varies. Right. And so I think what we need to do is we need to create so much critical mass of work, make mistakes, totally. Iterative, that's what the creative process is, that we can all come to, we need to come to a place where we're like, yeah, that's cool. You know what I mean? Like, where we just like, that's cool, that's it. You know?
And it's happening. I mean, yeah. You can tell already it's already happening to a degree, right? Because when we talk about taking back the narrative, I was talking to producer Dean Dunn, what does that mean? And I said, well, you know what the narrative is right now, with the stereotypes that we all said, right? But you go, now, the narrative's actually changed, and we're not controlling it the right way. Nowadays, if you're a young Asian kid, everyone thinks you can dance. Because of Quest Crew, because of
America's Best Dance Crew.
You know what I'm saying? Growing up in the 80s, that was not part of our stereotype. But now you're a young Asian kid today, you're like, oh, you must be able to get down.
I know.
It's crazy, it's changed. The narrative's changed. We have to continue to write the narrative, because it is changing. It's always changing, of course. But this time around, it's our narrative. We need to add to that. And people, I feel, are adding to that narrative. We're adding to the narrative, but we have to collectively add to that narrative.
I think I'd like to get to the place where, you see a show about an Asian American family on TV, and or an Asian American character, when they get killed off, I'm not so heartbroken because that's one less one, or a TV show or an Asian American character or something like that where it's not it's allowed to be bad. It's allowed to be super lousy, so that if it is and it gets yanked off or it gets slammed, it's like, well, at least we got all this other stuff over here. I mean, it's just it can't be the when Fresh Off the Boat came out, it it has all these burdens on it for being a show, the first Asian American family on TV in 20 years, and like put all this hope in, and it's just like, God, like I really wish like it had the room to like, you know, thankfully it was good, it's still on and stuff like that, but like, you know, it didn't have a lot of room to fail, and I feel like, you know, an Asian American film comes along every however many years, you know, and like, everyone is like, oh, please be the good one. Like, you know, that's where the red sweats come. You know what red sweats are? Red sweats are like, you know, your
anxiety.
The anxiety of seeing yourself represented on screen. Like, please be good, mofo. Please be good. You know, it's like, I want to get to the place where we're allowed to be bad. We can have great stuff. We can have bad stuff, and then, you know, we're not all just hoping for like that thing that's going to carry us. You know, it's like we need all that failure as well.
Yeah. I would throw in there two things. One. An amazing writer named Sarah Hagi, who's from Canada, has been quoted. It's on a t-shirt that I own. It's called, Lord, grant me it's a prayer. Lord, grant me the confidence of a mediocre white man.
Damn,
I need you to think on that. It sounds racist at first. I need you to think on it, because it speaks exactly to what we're saying right now about the ability to fail. When you have an industry that doesn't have these sort of tight expectations around you needing to be that one to make it good, right? You have way more space to fail, and that's not to mock mediocre white men. It's like, I want to be mediocre. I want Asians to be able to be mediocre, but let's get the confidence to do that, because otherwise we're not going to create jack diddly, right? So that's one. Number two, as someone who used to work in the labor movement, I do have a perspective around creative work as work, right? So if you want to do media, do creative stuff, be an artist, especially if you're Asian American, I get this question all the time. I'm sure you get this, like, oh, how'd you make the leap? How'd you transition so that you could do like stand-up comedy? What do your parents think? I always get that.
That's an only Asian
question. Oh, that's an only. What do your parents think? Like, bro, you 30, okay? You 30. It's okay. You can talk back, you know. So, but I'm just saying, like, but that's real. Like, people who are even older than that, like, that's just, we care about our family's experience. I joke, like, I had to get straight A's, get into Harvard and MIT, get all these scholarships so that I could give my parents an immigrant checklist to make them feel like their trip was worth it, right? And then I was like, all right, I'm gonna do me. You know what I mean? Like, so I kind of did that. So I feel that pressure, but I'm just saying, if Asian Americans, Asian Pacific Islanders approached creative work and media work the way we approach any industry or work, right? So if you want to pursue something, what do? You get to know people who are doing that work. You get to know that. Who are the leading players? Like, you just
what are the schools?
What are the schools? Like, let's demystify it. What was enlightening was, I know someone named Umar, who's an amazing visual artist, Fro Hawk Two Feathers. He's a black man from Chicago. He literally said to me, Jenny, this is before I decided to do stand-up comedy, but I used to do poetry a little bit.
Yeah.
And he was like, yo, Jenny, like, you're so special. I hope you know that. And this is me, like I'm a work in politics. So you're so special. He made me cry. I don't think you understand. Like, I see you don't see yourself that way. Because I grew up in the theater. My parents were actors, and I just grew up around people who do work like that. And so to him, he said it was natural to just know what that life was like. How do you survive? How do you make ends meet, right? And that really created a light bulb for me, because I was like, oh, you're right. Of course I feel blocked or anxiety about pursuing creative stuff and not seeing that as a reality if I haven't had exposure to it. So Asian Americans, I'm saying, if you don't know people who work in this field, you just gotta get exposed to it. Like, just approach it like any practical career industry change. It's real people behind the scenes and in front of the scenes who are like getting paid to do stuff, right? There's skills, there's a craft. So just see it up.
Invest in the craft. I love it. One thing to really quickly add into this, no, it's amazing. I love it. I love it. Love it. We want to get into the Q&A portion, because there's a lot of like faces with like, I have stuff to say. But one thing that I would love to add to the whole mix, in terms of having worked with so many different Asian American artists across different genres, dancers, singers, comedians, actors, directors, film writers, all of it, for the last 8 years of my life, is that Asian people got to show up with the money. I'm sorry, we gotta call out that elephant in the room, because Asian people benefit so much off of representation, but are so timid in putting the money behind it. So there's a struggle, and this is why we wanted to have this panel, was to keep it very real with all of you guys, is that if Asian people don't even show up for Asian creatives who are taking that leap, and at that point that is a leap, and nobody's watching it, no one's going to their shows, people will drop out. They
pay $600 for Coachella.
Yes, and they'll pay $1,000 to go to Coachella to watch a lineup that has one Asian bassist in the back. Do you know what I'm saying? That's a real thing, and I know these artists personally.
That's it.
And just to plug our other event that's happening Thursday, it's the very first Asian American showcase. Okay, South by Southwest is one of the most amazing festivals I've ever gone to. And 2 years ago, I came here to talk to a music executive panel. And I asked them, point blank, I got up to that mic and I said, have you guys ever signed an Asian artist before? Asian American. And they said to my face what I've heard directly from the artists, like, we don't know what to do with them. We don't know what to do with them. We're not marketable still. That was 2015, it's changed to now, which is great. But that's why those things are meaningful, and that's a funny thing.
That's part of the education about what this is in these panels is, when we talk to Asian American audiences, we go, why are we the most affluent ethnic community in America? Because we are, but we're the least represented in mainstream media. It's about educating the audience that the dollars are our votes. Part of the reason why we're invisible is we haven't created the analytic systems that count all the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars that we're spending a year. It's not being counted as our money, therefore they're not catering to that money. There's things that you learn from other audiences. I remember going to the box office to a movie theater one time. A Tyler Perry movie's coming out with my African American friends. Like, we're gonna go buy tickets for the movie. I'm like, yo, I don't want to watch that movie. Like, none of us want to watch that movie. I'm like, then what are we doing? He goes, oh, it's opening weekend. We gotta buy the tickets. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But it's about educating the audience how the game works. If we want to win this game or be part of the game, not even win it, like be in the game. It's about us educating the system going, we're spending money, we have to create Asian analytics. We need to support the artists, the things that we care about, know that that money's going to be counted, because if it's not counted as Asian money, it's going to be counted as white money. That's the bottom line. And that's what has been counted as for the last 50 years.
Show up with the Asian money!
So we need to create Asian analytics. I mean, you talk to networks, you go, BET, they go, what's black money? They go, it's not just black people watching that. Get Out is not just black people watching Get Out.
Oh my God.
But it's counted as black money. And Hollywood's gonna help get other black movies made.
It's like, oh,
so, yeah, we want to change the game. But let's know how the game is being played. Let's activate the community to be active participants in this game.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Okay, so we're gonna move into our Q&A portion where brave souls who want to get up to that microphone and ask a question to any of our panelists, now's your chance. Please say hello and tell us your name.
Hi, I'm Jess, and my question is, I heard a lot about creative media. I work in news media, so I'm curious to know, like, what are some thoughts, like, we've highlighted some of your tweets, especially the Thank You, Matt Damon, and then we've also reached out to you as well.
Did I answer back?
No.
What do you work for?
AJ Plus.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Some of AJ Plus.
Yeah, but I was wondering, like, what are some things you'd like to see in news media and representation there? Obviously, representation within the newsroom itself we have, but like outside of that and public facing.
You know, as much as I appreciate this thing about Asian dollars, what I find is a lot of news journalism covering the Asian American community only talks about the fact that we're rich or we're educated. Honestly, that's like a very common story that gets talked about, whether it's Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother or whatever she is, right? It gets so much play in mainstream media, and it just reinforces this single narrative about us, which is that we're just rich, smart people, and then they don't know what to do with us. When Jeremy Lin came out with Insanity, people freaked out. All the mainstream, media outlets didn't know what to do. They were having, ESPN was having its head popping out of a fortune cookie and shit. Like, you know what I mean? You know, they just didn't know how to handle it. And so I just feel like the mainstream, if you as a leader at AJ Plus, you as a leader in the news, if you're not placing and seeking out, and honestly, unfortunately, it means you're doing more work than your next colleague who's also trying to be competitive with you. If you really care about this, then you're going to seek out the right contacts, the right networks of people to get up the stories that you don't typically hear, right? That's just the fact. I mean, that's what sucks. When I talk to friends and they're like, I'm the only whatever Persian, whatever you're running, comedian, I'm like, it's so hard. I'm like, yes, that's the point. We all created our own things. Literally, we all create our own things because there is no other institution who's doing what we felt like needed to be done. Right? So that's harder. It's like we have to do more work. That's why they say if you're not cis, white, gender, hetero, male, whatever, you gotta be working 3 times as hard in order to get sometimes as far, right? So I know that sounds depressing, but I feel like I just would encourage you to keep reaching out. Yeah, and also don't take no for an answer, honestly. Phil just told me about this one person that we all know in LA who kept bugging him, being like, yo, have you heard about this person? Have you heard about this Asian person? Have you heard about this Asian person? And we joke about it, that it's kind of like bugging. But what turns out, what happened? You gave her an opportunity to represent angry Asian men at a press junket.
I sent her to the Power Rangers press junket because I was like, oh, I want someone who is a fan of this.
But that literally is what you have to do when you're an Asian American trying to pursue stuff. You have to be pushy as fuck. Like, you just have to. And it feels really uncomfortable, and people are busy, so they'll forget, but like, you know what I'm saying? So like, you know.
And honestly, a little goes a long way because so many people know each other within this smaller but growing community. And what I can say with like 110% certainty is that there is supportive elements. So if you reach one person, you might reach 100 because they will, you know what I mean? Like if you don't have that nuance for your story, Jenny will like tell you exactly who to talk to, right? And that's where that collaborative element comes in too.
I'd love to connect with you guys afterwards.
Yeah.
Just transparency, I'm not Asian American, but I'm Latina.
Whoa!
Yeah!
Thank you for your
I was
question.
about to claim you though. I was about to claim you. You know, we all different shades in the Asian Pacific Islander community.
Oh, we got a line. I love it. Hi, what's your name?
My name is Josh.
Hi, Josh.
And you talk about like the money being behind, you know, supporting these people, but like, I mean, nowadays the Chinese entertainment business is putting a lot of money into movies and stuff, and so that's why you see people like maybe like Donnie Yen in Star Wars and stuff like that, and like Michael Bay putting a lot of like Chinese product into his movies for product placement. So, but then like when these Asians are represented, it's like, you know, Donnie Yen was a monk. Like he couldn't be anything else. He was just like a monk that was, you know, and that's like, I feel like that's pretty stereotypical. So then like, how can we like act, or how do we talk about it so that like we're thankful that, you know, we're being represented more, but like I feel like it's the wrong direction, or like maybe it's a different direction than what we thought. So like, how do we take that momentum and push it in the right direction?
Can I talk about the Great Wall? Can you talk about the Great Wall? Because I feel like we had a conversation with some other folks who went to the premiere. You know about the Great Wall, right? It's starring Matt Damon. It's a Chinese co-production. It was like Matt Damon and like the sexy Latino guy from Game of Thrones. I forgot his name.
Yeah, Pedro.
Yeah. So those two, and then everyone else was Chinese. And we had this discussion.
Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe. Yeah.
Pedro Bamstead.
So we had this discussion because number one, the movie was very mediocre and not that great given the type of talent that was involved in it. And number two, amongst Asian American entertainment folks that we saw that night, we had this debate. Someone said, and he'd probably publicly say it, but Phil Wong was like, Jenny, just to argue, like, I don't think it was as bad of like whitewashing, because it wasn't whitewashing, it was Matt Damon being white, but like he was a central character. I'm like, okay, I get it. But he said, wouldn't it be a benefit if like this was out in America and like that like white kid in the Midwest who didn't know any Asians got exposure to that and got exposure to think Chinese culture was cool? I was like, yeah, maybe. But to me, what you're talking about outweighs it. And honestly, I don't think we should just be like, oh, thank you, China, for bringing more money to Asian representation and not be critical of it. I don't think that's fair to us as Asian Americans who have our very specific experience to be quiet. You know what I mean?
And that's a very, very different topic, especially in terms of China and Hollywood. And like, if you want to read up on it, there's a lot more literature that's being published and more research being done, because that's a very different industry issue that people are really diving into that I don't even know all the nuanced information around.
It's very new, but it's still business. It's still business guys doing business, and they're still dealing with the same analytics of business that they're, I mean, we haven't changed the business format, so they're going, well, this is the way we do business. Like, okay.
But tell me why.
I mean, I do think that there is a larger issue of that needs to be sort of parsed out in terms of like, because it goes back to this perception of Asian Americans as foreign. I mean, like someone who puts a Chinese star in a movie saying like, we've checked off that box, we'll see that and see our complaints or the issues that we take about the lack of representation, and they will, well, we have an Asian in it, you know, there's an Asian face in it, like, but they've never drilled down to like, that's a very different issue than the people who experience, like, say, is an Asian American that we grew up here.
Exactly, and that's what we're talking about.
Like, you know.
We get, it's like going back a few years back when Psy did Gangnam Style. Great song, great guy. No, but the way that America sucked it up as the thing, you're going, oh my God, we can't get an Asian American sign, but they go, it re-intensified that Asians in America are foreign kind of like caricatures. And we're like, yo, this ain't Gangnam Style. He's great, but this room isn't. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna diss on Korea. I'm just saying the way that America just soaked it up as the biggest song of the year. We're like, yo, this is not as bad as like a Long Duck Dong character in 16 Candles, but it just further intensifies how Americans actually see Asians as not.
He was clowning a little. He was clowning a little.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Like, because that was the problem. Is what you're saying. He was a clown.
Well, not as a clown. He was foreign. Yeah. He's not speaking. He's Korean. It's like, oh yeah, this is so cute. It's like a foreign. Other things like, no, we're not foreign. We're your neighbor. Like we hang out in the same. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not trying to vilify like the foreignness element of it, because the Asian American community is like. It's actually majority immigrants actually, but like, and that experience is like, the experience of my parents is super valid as an Asian American experience, but like, it's so, that identity is so conflated, especially when someone is making these decisions in a Hollywood movie, like Independence Day or something like that, where they're like, we have Chinese actors, we're gonna put them in there, and like that's gonna count as like sort of the Asian representation. Right. It's like, it's completely different.
We gotta complain and we gotta push back.
And we gotta create our own stuff. I mean, Hollywood's always gonna play the game that it's playing, but we need to create our own genre where we can actually tell stories of worth to our community with real three-dimensional characters, with real people. I mean, we're people. Like, let's say some real people.
Asian Americans or Asians in general?
I think Asian, I mean, to a certain degree, Asian Americans.
Real people. Yeah.
No, I mean, like who should be doing? I mean,
I think Asian American. I mean, we're Asians in America, so part of me goes, there's a great and very amazing film culture in Korea, in Hong Kong, right? And then every time you talk about Asian American media, someone goes, you know, Crouching Tiger is amazing. I'm like, Crouching Tiger is an amazing movie. That has nothing to do with my life. You know what I'm saying? It has as much to do with my life as it has to do with a white guy's life. Like, none of us are flying around trees doing martial arts. And it's an amazing movie. Except for Jenny Yang sometimes. But it's like one of those things, like, that's an amazing movie, but that has as much to do with a Filipino American's life as it does someone from German descent in, you know what I'm saying, in upstate New York. Like, don't be like, you guys got Crouching Tiger? I'm like, what does that mean?
What are you guys?
Exactly, what do you guys?
So I think that, like, to sum it, it's like, we've got to remain critical, constructive at the same time, and proactive in creating content that really reflects our stories. We can't like leave it to other people to be the representation and call it a day. It's a very evolving thing. So I hope that.
Yeah. For the record, I have no problem with Donnie Yen in Rogue One. Man.
I don't either. He's a great.
I know he's awesome. He's awesome.
All right, we got a couple more minutes. We have to. How much time do we have? Just 1, 2, 3, check.
2 minutes.
Can we go over?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. We're gonna.
I'm
push it.
Jill, and I'm not Asian American.
Hi, Jen.
But I do work, I have the pleasure and the pressure, I think, of working at an Asian art museum.
Oh.
And
At
so
the Asian Art Museum?
not the I'm gonna say A.
You're not gonna tell us.
Oh no,
it's
I will.
okay.
The Crow Collection of Asian Art in Dallas.
Cool.
Yeah, and so I enjoy my job. It's great, and that educate my background is in education. So and when I talk about pressure, about talking about artists and art that represents Asian culture. And I was thinking about, the upcoming Asian Pacific Islander Month, and I go back and forth because I want to promote that month, and I want to offer lots of opportunities for the community to engage with Asia and Asian Americans through our museum and then restaurants and all kinds of things. But when I think about it, I'm like, it's a month. Is that insulting to say that you can only celebrate, or how do you view that? Like you're only can celebrate it during that month, or me promoting that just for that month? I would love to get your insights.
Well, as I like to say, every month is Asian American. For me, personally. I think that May is a great, that month is a great way to that is when everyone is open to talking about it's you don't have to pull too many teeth when it comes to talking about diversity in that setting, because people are like, oh yeah, that's where we're being thrown a bone a little bit. It's a good opportunity to seize that bone and take a little bit more than that, I think, in terms of exposing people to not just Asian American culture and history, but issues our concerns. So I always think that May is a great time to sort of use it, exploit it actually, just for my purposes, but I also think that it's important, especially I think in your situation, I think it's important to know that it was created for Asian American and Pacific Island, not just like art from Asia, because I've seen people conflate. Again, this conflation, particularly in May, we're going to talk about Asia, and it's all this random stuff from Asia that has really nothing to do with this specific identity,
Yeah.
So how do you do it? I say very carefully,
But do it.
But the fact that you're doing it is great, because most
do it,
people don't even know it's Asian American Month. Most people don't, and I'm talking about Asians also. So, for sure. I had a meeting with the head of multicultural BMW, and I explained to him last month with Asian American Month, and he's like, I didn't know that. I'm like, you're head of multicultural. But I said it's okay because I know that most people don't, so the fact that you are celebrating it does mean something. I think, again, it goes about our invisibility, it goes about us not even repping our community the right way. It starts with us, and it's going to go out to everybody else, but it starts with us. But the thing that we did with Beyond the 8th is we're trying to also celebrate it the 8th day of every month. So it's not just one day a month. So we capitalize on one day a month and try to co-opt the 8th day of every month to spotlight Asian American media. And so it's trying to keep the conversation going and not just keep it in one month.
Yeah, can I just say, I really appreciate you expressing the anxieties you have about representing a culture that's not your own. So number one, I want to say that's actually a really great start. Because that shows that you care about it and that you might actually respect this work that you're doing, right? So I love that. Number two, unfortunately in America, because people conflate the two identities, and because a lot of times people feel like it's safer to fund things that are Asian art rather than Asian American art, for you to be someone who cares about the Asian American diasporic experience, right, and to share that as an extension of the Asian Art Museum that you work for would be so powerful as an ally. Does that make sense? So for you to point out, say, for this May, this is Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. We at the Asian Art Museum, we're celebrating it as an extension of the Asian diaspora. Come and let's talk about what is the difference between Asian American versus Asian. What are some immigrant stories about what it's like to grow up in Dallas? You know what I'm saying? Like you can do that. Not everyone's gonna have a Chinatown, New York Museum of Chinese of the Americas building to celebrate those very local stories. And so for you to do that from your position would be so powerful, Yeah.
It's a very different thing. I remember going into Asia the first time. This is like a little anecdote. I was talking to Chinese guys, we're Asians. He goes, what are you talking about? I'm not Asian, I'm Chinese. He goes, you guys are Americans. You guys, that's your word. I'm like, oh yeah, that's us. We're talking about Asians. When you go to Asia, they're not Asian, they're Chinese and Japanese. I'm like, right, we don't go around going, we're North American. But little things like that, you start going, oh, it's a full different experience. We are connected, but if we don't have this conversation and understand it within our own communities, let alone with a white community or black community, to understand this is a whole different thing going on, you understand? African Americans going to Africa, they're different countries, there's a whole different thing going on, but we're not educated enough, we're not explaining this. I mean, February is African American month, they're not doing art from, Uganda or something like that. They're doing art that's, jazz, hip hop, rap.
It would be amazing.
It's African American month.
Example, if you did, I could just picture right now at your Dallas Asian Art Museum, have a panel and a talk from Oliver Wang about Filipino Bay Area turntable culture.
Yeah.
With just a bunch of white-haired patrons from your museum sitting in the audience. That would be amazing.
Hire Jenny Yang as your consultant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are we getting kicked out? Not yet? Okay, cool. Next question.
Okay.
We're just pushing back.
Okay, my name is Zoya, I go to UT, and since Asia is such a monolith, I feel like there can be a lot of divides between South Asian culture and East Asian culture, and especially with the visibility of South Asian culture, that's a huge thing. And I know that as Asian Americans, we have to grapple with that, because they don't make that distinction, and generally.
Yeah, for sure.
None of us are South Asian on this panel.
Yeah, for sure. So for shows like Master of None, for example, episode 2 where they talked about immigration and stuff, is more of that being built? I'm waiting for season 2, but is more of that being built in the entertainment industry to
provide the exposure that a lot of Asian Americans are lacking.
Well, can I just throw out there, like we're only, a lot of people want to write their Master of None. That shit's happening. And more Asian Americans, South Asian, East Asian are getting behind the scenes in order to make that happen. But this goes back to the dollars thing. Y'all, unfortunately, we just have to work harder at finding that content. Okay, it's great that Aziz Ansari, who's super famous and can like sell out the Madison Square Garden, can put out something like that and make an impact, and it's beautiful. But like literally, independent, like since the 80s, okay, not to take away from the Emmy Award-winning episode 2 of The Parents Experience for Master of None, but honestly, anyone who's been around with independent film since the whenever from the dawn of time for Asian American cinema, we've been seeing that story, right? David Magdell, we've been seeing that story, you know. And so unfortunately, what we need to do is we need to make that effort. The way people will go to SoundCloud and be like, "Yo, this mixtape just dropped," and like they hunt for that stuff. We need to do that with our own culture. We need to do that with our own Asian American art.
Right, and we need to create platforms.
Yeah.
Again, with the interactive people, we need to create better platforms, because the fact of the matter is, there's an Asian American film festival in every major city in America that's been going on for 10 plus years. So, and there's films in them every year. There's these films every year. We have a catalog of hundreds of Asian American films that no one's seen except for a handful of them. Phil has seen all of them.
So he can be the critic.
But it's like literally you go to, I mean, every city has an Asian, we've been to all the Asian American film festivals, just how come everyone doesn't know about the films? I don't know, we need to find a better way of promoting that and getting it out there like a SoundCloud kind of thing.
They're not all good.
And they're not all good.
They're not all good.
Well, that's the thing, they're not all good, but this is what I tell the young filmmakers, right? They're not all good. Who's the quality control? Because we're talking about creating product in LA right now. We'd be on the 8th and other different programs. I go, but this is the deal. The studios are putting out, you know, it used to be 18 films, now it's 12 films a year since the Sony hack. Sony's putting out 12 films a year, other studios from 12 to 18 films a year. No, all those films aren't good. Like, who are we kidding? They do 2 good films in the whole year. If they do 2 good films, whatever. Like, we think that we have to do all great films. What's the last really good film you saw? Get Out, besides Get Out. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, answered his own question.
It's like, that's what I'm saying, but it's like, people, we want this quality control, and I tell artists all the time, and creators, it's just on you to make the film. The fact that you're making it, you're gonna make it as good as you can. If you're wondering later on, the worst thing when you're on a set is when you're going, this is gonna be classic. Like, we're not critics. It's not our job to critique our film. It's our job to do our film. It's our job to tell the story. What it's gonna be later on if it becomes classic, that's on how it hits the audience. But I guarantee if you think you're making a classic in the second day of shooting, you're probably not making a classic. You just gotta you gotta tell stories. We're storytellers, just tell stories.
What I want to say to you specifically as a student at UT, and my cousin went there, so yay. I think it's amazing that you're here and that you're asking this question. And the fact that I want to empower you as a consumer, as somebody who's watching Aziz and like, I freaking love him, I love that show. Again, it's a starting point, and be vocal about that. That's something that every person in this room, whether you're pursuing to become a filmmaker, supporting a film, or whatever, as a consumer, you have so much power. And what you say in this day, like today, in this second, we can literally catalog what everybody on Twitter was talking about. There's somebody gathering that data. So that, in terms of that submissive, quiet, Asian stereotype, that's something that bothered me my entire life. And I became so feeding into it. And what Kollaboration personally did for me was like, it gave me this community to be like, screw that, I'm gonna say what I feel like, and I'm gonna say what I like. Granted, you're scared of the criticism, but that's what we gotta do, you know what I mean? So like, if you wanna write a blog or write a Facebook post or a tweet or whatever, Instagram, to say you alone why you like that show, what it meant to you as a South Asian to see someone that looks like you on a mainstream Netflix show, it's gonna count. I don't want you to walk away feeling like, oh, it's just like words in the sea of like, maybe you could look at it that way, but you can also look at it like, I'm moving the needle just a tiny bit. You know what I mean? So like, don't ever lose that. And like, join orgs, like, write an editorial, whatever you want to do. World's your oyster.
And can we extend this conversation after this?
Yeah.
Because we're using the hashtag collab SXSW. So if you didn't get your question, if you want to sound off, keep this conversation going. Check it, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk there.
Keep tweeting it.
Twitter or Instagram or Facebook.
I
wonderful production crew has been here all day, so we're going to send them to dinner and home so they can come back tomorrow. But you can stay. We're just going to turn the mics off and put away the laptop, so come up, ask your questions. We're not going to kick you out the door.
Okay, so real quick, last slide just to show you guys. Again, Thursday, if you are here, we are having our first Asian American showcase. It's 6 awesome, again, a sampling. We have hundreds of Asian artists that could have been in this showcase, but it's going to be so good. Get to know new artists. Please come out. If you cannot be here, if you're leaving before Thursday, please help us by retweeting it, letting people know. It's all on Kollaboration's Twitter. They've all been helping us with the social media push as well. We want to show South by that this is an awesome showcase.
Yes.
I guarantee y'all are going to love one part of it. I don't know what genre y'all are into, but it would mean the world for you to help us get the word out. And thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Too much too late, I don't get it. Seems simple enough, but I always get stuck at the part where you walk out.